We are back with episode 5 of Healing Our Homes podcast. I am joined today with Amanda, Felicia, and Ashleigh. Today we will be talking about intrusive thoughts. So I thought this was a very interesting topic to really dive into, kind of because intrusive thinking is like kind of scary and I don't feel like it's talked about enough. So the first topic we'll be talking about basically is just what intrusive thoughts mean to you. What's your personal definition of intrusive thoughts? So for me, I feel like it's kind of a thought that is difficult to let go, something that you can't really shake out of your head easily. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Okay, oh my God, Cardi.
So funny, Cardi. I love her.
Cardi is a mascot in this podcast. Okay, you never have to apologize for that queen's presence. Cardi Lola.
Anyways, so essentially, I just feel like these thoughts are kind of thoughts that you don't really resonate with, but for some reason just won't leave your brain. So with that, Felicia, I think what is your thoughts on this?
I think that an intrusive thought to me is it's a thought that just kind of like really interrupts your peace. I feel like it almost like a loud, rude voice. That's like what I think of when I think of an intrusive thought, because it's so funny because I actually didn't even think of like the fact that there are like negative and positive intrusive thoughts until like we kind of like got into this week. Is funny because I don't know, I like it just dawned on me and I was like, wow, okay. But I think that's what it feels like to me, is because typically I recognize the negative ones more, I guess. So maybe that's why they feel like that. But I agree, a thought that you can't like get rid of.
I feel you. Honestly, I was gonna say, I think that's the perfect way to put it. Is I think it's a thought that just completely interrupts your peace. And for me, it's something that like once it's in my head, if I don't act on it, it's quite literally the definition of the word intrusive. It just keeps coming into my mind until I take action, whether it's something like baking a pie or whether it's, just anything. It could be totally random too. A lot of people, we'll talk about it a little later, but a lot of people think that it's an intrusive thought has to be something that's negative or something that's really downing on yourself. And while it's super common for negative intrusive thoughts to be the type of intrusive thoughts people have, I find myself having a ton of positive intrusive thoughts, like a ton of them, whether it's like, oh my gosh, I should treat myself to coffee. And then I don't stop thinking it until I take action and go get that coffee. Lord knows that we here at Healing Our Homes are obsessed with our coffees. We are some Starbucks ladies. Yeah, that's honestly the best way I think I could define an intrusive thought, is something that just pops into my head. And if I don't act on it, it just keeps popping into my head, whether it be like later the day, say it's again the coffee thought, for example. Nothing super negative, but it's something that's consistent. If I don't get it that day, the next day that thought is still there, and you better know it's even stronger than the day before, because now it's fueled by, oh my gosh, I didn't yesterday. It could happen today, and it just kind of makes it even stronger. So that's how I think of intrusive thoughts. So let's go, Ashleigh, I think.
Yeah, I really like that Maleree said that they don't always resonate with you, because that's kind of, yeah, like I feel like that's what makes them intrusive, is like you don't want to think these thoughts sometimes, I guess. And really I'm with Felicia in that I didn't even think that intrusive thoughts could be positive or provide some benefit until we kind of started talking about this. And so I don't know. Yeah, I'm just really excited to dive into this and learn more, because honestly, I've already learned something and we've just started.
I think for me, like with the positive and the negative, like I agree. Like at first, I initially did not know like positive intrusive thoughts. And I feel like for me, it's mainly like, it's just harder to recognize. Like, especially when it's like more positive, like, for example, one of mine is like, if I forget to brush my teeth in the morning, like literally I just think about it, and I don't let myself forget to brush my teeth that night, which is a really positive thought, like self-care, hygiene. but I actually like learned, like I read this quote from this blog. It's actually called Unwanted Life. And it just tells us that everyone has intrusive thoughts, but chances are you are actually just only registering the negative ones as being intrusive. So however, they're not the only intrusive thoughts that we have. The negative ones we just notice more just because they're unwanted. So I thought that was a very good way to put it.
My mind is blown. I guess we are kind of in our second topic. I didn't mean to leeway us in there, but we're here. When it comes to positive and negative intrusive thoughts, I guess I could just give another example. I want to be very clear. While I do have a ton of positive and intrusive thoughts and just positive thoughts in general, I run at 150 miles a minute. My brain goes so fast, and I, just like everybody else, do have negative intrusive thoughts as well. Especially whenever I got into a relationship with my boyfriend, not because of anyone's fault. Oh my God, this man is amazing. And he is just everything and more, which is why it was so blatantly clear that the thoughts were genuine intrusive thoughts with no base. You know what I'm saying? And I think that was just something really important for me to step aside and realize, so that I can, instead of letting that intrusive thought impact my relationship further, I can take a moment, breathe, and do some inner work and kind of unwind where that came from if I need to. Or I can even just say, shout out to the self-care space for a lot of the mental health tools that have helped me come to this point. But I can just take a step back and say, are these thoughts my own, or can I just accept these thoughts, or I do accept these thoughts and I am letting them pass without having impact, or something along those lines. And just brings so much comfort, because you are not these thoughts, whether it's positive, whether it's negative, you aren't these intrusive thoughts. And oftentimes they don't have a base, and you deserve to let that thought kind of fly off your shoulder, And once I learned that, I realized, like, I can genuinely have this and it not have to be crazy impactful, and it stopped. And once those thoughts, some of them stopped carrying weight, I could really pick and choose which ones do I want to carry weight. Maleree, what were you going to say? I see your hands up.
I was just going to say, like, whenever we brought up this topic initially, like, I think the number one thing that came to my mind was just like, you have to really remind yourself that you are not these thoughts. And it just kind of blew my mind that, like, nobody taught me this as a kid. Like, nobody said, like, hey, you might have some thoughts, but just remember, like, you are separate from that. Like, you are not your thoughts. You have no control over that. And so, like, learning it now as an adult is just like, what the heck? Like, I've been missing out on this information my whole life. I probably would have been a lot less upset in many situations if someone would have just sat me down and told me this.
That's so funny. I feel that too, because it's not something that you like, I don't know. It's like I said, we broke down what we were going to do for the episode, and I'm like, okay, positive intrusive thoughts versus negative. And I was like, wait a minute, positive intrusive thoughts. I was just like, oh wow, like I'm literally just sitting here listing off, like, because I think for me, the difference between the two of them is the fact that my negative ones are a lot louder, I feel like, and they're just rude. They're things I don't want to hear. Things, some of them are completely irrelevant, like Ashleigh said, and it's like, where did that even come from? But then it has me wondering, like, do I like feel that way deep down, like, or like what? Like, that's wild. But I think Maleree, because I don't think that they themselves ever really sat down to do that, to like think and put that much thought into it, and to retrain their mind and to say, okay, you know what? When this thought comes up, I'm going to start telling myself this instead, because it's very easy to be like, wow, for some reason, this thought that I don't even resonate with, I'm just going to take it and run with it. All of a sudden I'm in a bad mood. I'm having a bad day. Like, for what? Literally no reason. Like, it's just so wild how your brain works, how your brain really essentially is trying to protect you, and which is weird to think about with like anxiety and things like that. But yeah, so it's like, you want to take it serious, but then some of them are just, for what?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I was going to say, I literally am I can't even explain how excited I am that we are talking about this topic, because it's like there are just so many little examples of it. And the one thing I wanted to say before I passed off to Ashleigh was the biggest example I could think of when it comes to a positive intrusive thought that it cracks me up is, and I've said this, we were planning the podcast when we're in our little Snap group. We have our little Snapchat group outside of the podcast, and someone is like, I'm feeling a little tired. Say maybe Ashleigh's a little tired because this woman wakes up at the booty crack of dawn and kills it every gosh darn day. Okay. And I just have the thought, I'm like, oh my gosh, what if I just send her like $10, $15 on Cash App and say your next coffee's on me? And then I just start, how so many negative intrusive thoughts have this spiral, and you just like kind of go down this rabbit hole of thoughts. And it's like oftentimes you'll go into scenarios that it's just beyond your wildest imagination. You kind of hurt your own feelings. It's kind of like that with that thought too. I'm like, okay, I start to break it down similarly in a good way. I'm like, okay, well, if I send her that, can I afford that financially? Do I want to save that and then put it towards myself? And then we get to the real meat and bones of the battle of intrusive thoughts and the reality of challenging our intrusive thoughts. Just the overall fact of like, I don't have to spend this on myself, but I also don't have to give in this moment. Like I'm not these thoughts, I am still a good person. I'm still loved by my friends if I don't buy them a coffee or make them smile. And then there's still also that continued spiral of like, oh, but what if they need that smile today? What if this or that? So there are just so many different ways to think about it. And I think it's just such an awesome thing to think about, because our brains, you guys, especially people who have anxiety, they're so intricate. And it's like, think about it. We can and will think of every single gosh darn scenario. Say you're talking to somebody, a person with anxiety will sit there and before the person says exactly what they're going to say, they're thinking about all of the different 5 or 6 ways they might respond. And then the person's thinking about the next step ahead. How would I respond to that? Oh my gosh, what if they feel this way if I respond to that? Like, I'm getting overwhelmed thinking about it, just how fast the brain works. And it's just so common for intrusive thoughts to take over the mind. And it's so cool to think about. The brain is so intricate, but at the same time, we don't have to let everything be crazy impactful and hold a bunch of weight. We're just here to experience. You know what I mean? We are souls here to experience what the earth has to offer. Shout out to the earth. It is Earth Month, the time we are recording this. But yeah, so Ashleigh, what were you going to say? Go for it, girl.
I have kind of just been sitting here thinking about how excited I am to kind of dive into looking at my intrusive thoughts, because even as I'm trying to think of examples of mine, like I said, I didn't even realize that they could be positive until recently. And I'm kind of looking and trying to figure out what some of my intrusive thoughts are. And I can only think of like a couple examples right now, but I do think it's important with intrusive thoughts, like other people said, to recognize them and really like dive into whether they are worthy of taking up space in your head. Like what if they, like some thoughts, like my cat is nudging his head on my computer.
I wanted to ask what his name was. I couldn't remember. Oh my goodness.
Thank you, buddy. Okay.
What was your cat's name? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I had to ask. Charlie? Hey, Charlie! Okay, sorry, I missed it.
But sometimes like intrusive thoughts, I think similar to like in what Amanda said hers are, like getting a sudden urge to like gift a friend or just make them smile, and how it just is intrusive in that it repeats itself until action is taken or it's kind of like settled down. But I think that's where it comes in, where they're intrusive, is if you don't stop and recognize what this thought is trying to tell you, that's kind of where it keeps coming back until you do. But sometimes they can be empowering. Like if one day Amanda decides she does have a little extra money and wants to make this friend smile, like if that empowers you that day, then maybe that's the day you do act on that intrusive thought in a way that you don't usually. So I don't know. I'm also excited to kind of observe my own intrusive thoughts more moving forward.
I feel like also like after realizing that there are positive and negative intrusive thoughts, like I'm like sitting here wondering if like these positive intrusive thoughts are like like actually like me, like, you know, like for example, like the toothbrush thing, like I have to remember to brush my teeth and everything, and I'm like, oh, I'm so hygienic when I'm brushing my teeth, but like really it was my positive intrusive thought being like, brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth. So it's like also like like I don't know, I think it's easier like to take the credit for yourself for the positive intrusive thoughts, like with Amanda, like so you don't really recognize that as positive intrusive thoughts because you're like, oh, I'm gonna be nice and, you know, buy my friend a coffee, but really it's like your positive intrusive thought. Like it's just so wild to think about, like
teeth.
yeah, it's so crazy that there are both, like,
I
and
agree because I didn't realize either. Like, and that was such like I was just like, oh God. And then I realized that I'm like, do I even ever have any? And like, I do, but like Amanda said, like similar, like I will think that sometimes too, like, oh, I should do this or I should do that. But then it's like, why? Like, where's that? Like, you know what I like? Should I really, or should I really take care of myself today? So a lot of times I just have to sit back, and I think the best thing is just like you said, like just kind of really thinking about them, where they come from, like dissecting them in that way. Journaling is great, but like obviously you don't always have like the time to like stop and like journal. So like for me, I'll just like stop and take a deep breath. But like I've been doing that with like so many things. Like ever since I got into like meditation, and pretty much every section in the self-care space, there's like some kind of a breathing exercise. So I started to get more and more into that because it really does help in the moment. Like if there's nothing else and like I'm getting ready to go to work and I'm like, wow, this is terrible, I'm not having a good time, and now I have to go and smile and like wait on people and talk to them and pretend like I care about how their day is going when I don't, because I'm like caught up in what I'm dealing with right now. Like I really have to like do it pretty often to just kind of like, all right, take a deep breath, like, and I think that honestly helps me out a lot.
I also feel like it's important to recognize that like a thought that could initially start out as a positive intrusive thought could, I think, easily turn into a negative intrusive thought. Like I was just sitting here thinking about my examples of positive intrusive thoughts, and like for me, like with school, I'm almost done with school, but literally like this whole semester, like every Monday, the start of my week, every day that I would wake up, like I have this routine where I'll go to the gym as soon as I wake up, and then I'll come home, do all my homework and everything. And like for some reason, like up until this point, I just thought that it was like my brain just reminding me of the things that I needed to do. But now looking back, I'm like, okay, those are definitely like positive intrusive thoughts, me telling me like, okay, you need to get this homework done today. But then it also turned into like a negative. It was like a slippery slope, because then it was giving me anxiety that I couldn't just focus on my workout and take myself out of what I have to do afterwards. And so it's like just such a slippery slope, I feel like.
It really is like, and it's funny that you said that, because that's like one of the first things I thought about after I recognized that like I have positive ones, because I'm like, okay, well, like Amanda said, like, not that that's not a positive thought, it still is, but then all of a sudden it's 20 minutes later, because I've literally been there. Like, I think on Amanda's birthday, I was like, oh, like, I was broke. And I'm just like, but I should like send Amanda something over there. And I'm like, but like, it's okay. And then I'm just like, but like, I kind of feel bad. And then I'm like, but like, why do I feel bad? Like, it's like, is Amanda personally gonna be mad at me? No, like, she does not care. So like, so stop. So like, why, for what? Like, and it's funny. And like, also like you said, the homework for me, it's cleaning, it's housework. It's wow, I should like really get that done. It's so bad. And then if I don't, I'm like, oh man, like, and it's just like, it bums me out. And it's like, why? It's, who cares? Because I could clean this entire house today, and tomorrow it's not going to be clean. So like, what does it matter?
Yeah, I think my to-do list in general is just a really big one that I've kind of come to realize is intrusive. Like, I will just think about things that I need to do.
Yeah, and with the to-do list, like you're thinking like, oh, my brain's just reminding me of everything I need to do so I don't forget it. But then like it definitely turns into an intrusive thought, because it's like I can't even be present in this moment because all I'm thinking about is what I'm going to do after. And then it goes on from there. So from there, like with the intrusive thoughts and everything, I think it's important to take a step back and, challenge these intrusive thoughts. So I think it's really important for each of us to kind of talk about the ways that we challenge them, and if we struggle with challenging them, the ways that we hope to challenge them. So while some of these things that we might say we don't personally practice regularly, I definitely feel like some of them, like I definitely see that they could help and plan to and really hope to put that into action in my life anyways. But for me, I think honestly, the number one thing is just like we talked about earlier, is just reminding yourself that you are separate from these thoughts, and all of our thoughts that we have are involuntary, and we can only manage how we react to them and how we let them affect our emotions, our spirit, and our day-to-day life. So really just like mentally questioning these thoughts is like the first step, I feel like, which whenever I was thinking about mentally questioning these thoughts, the topic of inner monologue came up in my head, and I was completely mind blown that not everybody has an inner monologue. So I don't really know what to say for you guys that don't have an inner monologue.
I don't know what that's like. So.
Yes, like I'm like,
imagine
if you don't have an inner monologue, please, like we have some questions.
Like,
so like let us know. Like,
I'm gonna be totally transparent. Yeah, this question came up because I had seen it and asked my boyfriend about it. My boyfriend Sheldon, my sweet, wonderful boyfriend Sheldon, who apparently has an empty mind, and not in a way that is an insult, but in a way that means he does not have the sound of somebody speaking to himself in his mind. And that just is so odd to me because I'm sitting in my car. Like maybe like think of it like your mental radio. I can literally hear the tune and sound and the drums and everything behind like the mental radio. If I think of a song right now, it's playing in my mind. Apparently, when I asked him directly, I was like, you don't have anything like talking back if you like, okay, I have a to-do list today. I need to get this done and this done. You don't like hear that in your head. I don't know how else to describe it because it's just like I literally was losing my marbles. So I'm glad I brought this to the table. We need everyone to comment or share this with somebody and ask,
I need to know.
Oh, how is it silent?
Because I
How
feel
do
like
you
there can't
turn
be that
that
many
mental
people.
radio off? Oh,
it just absolutely blows my mind. And like whenever I was thinking about mentally questioning yourself, I'm like, how do they mentally question themselves? Like I just don't understand.
Let me be clear, Sheldon is very good at self-reflecting too. So he's one of those people, like when you give him space with himself, he's definitely able to like reflect on his own self. And I will say, we genuinely thought maybe he just doesn't understand what it means, maybe this or that. No, we did the research. I don't know exactly what we saw. I'm not going to put any kind of claims out there, but from what we had seen, it is very, very common for people to not have that inner dialogue. So it's not that
common.
Not that, yeah. I mean, it's not that people don't understand what it is and they just have it. It's that they might just not have it. So
I'm asking everybody I know tomorrow.
all my marbles are
Literally.
because I'm like, they're like, it's not that common. I'm like, it's not. So that's just.
Oh my God.
I'm upset.
No, I feel it. See, and okay, I feel like, Mal, did you want to say anything else on challenging or intrusive thoughts? Because I had something that I was thinking about, but I didn't want to interrupt you.
Honestly, I was kind of gonna go into like affirmations and stuff, just because I think that is a very big one. And then really, I think the only other thing that I was gonna say is that when I was doing my research on intrusive thoughts, I just feel like it's important to recognize that people should never hesitate to take the next step and get therapy if it's necessary for their life. Because I was looking up like how intrusive thoughts are like really dealt with in like a medical setting. And it just said cognitive behavioral therapy is a very common strategy. And I know many people that have been through that specific type of therapy. And it's like very, very helpful for identifying the like subconscious and, you know, like challenging the things that you do, even in your daily habits that you don't recognize that are because of your subconscious. So I think healing your subconscious is also important for these intrusive thoughts.
I'm here for that reminder. Oh my gosh, I literally love that. Therapy is such a good tool. I was literally talking about this the other day. Like, I think no matter who you are, no matter what your experience is, positive or negative, which outweigh the other, I think therapy is always such a good tool to recommend to anybody. And I could definitely see it helping, especially if those intrusive thoughts for people lean towards that negative spiral. So definitely find yourself. And also, I think you said it was, what was the name of it? Well,
cognitive behavioral therapy. It's just a type of therapy that you do. My mom actually went through it, and she like started remembering a ton of things from her childhood that she like had no clue that happened. And so like she's really started to do like the deep healing and like inner work, because all this stuff was stored in her subconscious that she had just shoved out of her mind. And it's just like, it's crazy what therapy can reveal. So like, even if you think you're the healthiest person on this planet, like I promise you could benefit in some way from therapy.
that blows my mind.
I am like, that's because I've always wondered, like they say that you have like, especially like if you've experienced trauma, which let's be real, everyone has on some level. And it's not to say that you were abused or neglected or anything like that, because it's not always like to that level, but everybody has stuff that their parents, grandparents, babysitter, teacher, whoever, like, you're so surrounded by so many people in your life, like when you're young, like that they, themselves didn't even realize they were, basically passing on to you. And so like, yeah, my childhood is a little blurry. So like that is so interesting to me. Like, that's just, I'm like, what? I didn't know, like, I don't know. Cause I've always wondered, like, how do people like, how, like, I don't know. And then I've been reading The Body Keeps Score. So good. It's such a good book. I think I'm actually going to read some more of it tonight because I really need to get through it. I don't want to rush through it because it's so good, but I have a copy of it. So it's like, okay, just read it and then you can always like go back. But they were talking about how this is heartbreaking, like about how they had a few different clients who were doing, I can't remember exactly what it is. I'll have to look. I don't think it was like what Maleree's talking about. I think maybe they were just like speaking to somebody and like bringing up things that happen. They basically were
You're okay, Mel.
they had like, what's the word for that? They like memories were coming to them, but eventually they turned out to not be real. It was really weird. Like, yes. And one of them was somebody being sexually abused by someone in their family, and then ended up not being, and like all this time their father is like obviously very upset and hurt, and like, and I'm just like, so that can happen, because that's terrifying to me that somebody can think that they like, she really
and genuinely and have that fear, like, though, like I'm sure that person was terrified too.
I mean, it teared apart their family, like if you think about it, like, and I'm just like, oh, that would be awful. And then to like realize like down the road, like, oh, it actually didn't happen. I'm like, I can't imagine.
Good Lord, with a T. Good Lord.
Yeah, so the book, the book is kind of, it's like so good, but it's like things like that. And I'm just like sometimes it's hard to read faster because I'm like, wow, I have to put this book down for a minute. Like, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's wild. I was going to say, when it comes to, I know we were talking about challenging our intrusive thoughts. I would just like to say too, I know we talked about this, but I think it's important to remember that I don't know if it's good to expect to get to a point where your intrusive thoughts will ever go away. Because for me, whenever I was younger, whenever I first started going to therapy, I was diagnosed with OCD, which, obsessive compulsive disorder, which it's not like trying to stay clean. I'm not, washing my hands several times a day, although I've been like in small spurts where I felt like doing things like that. It's more so the intrusive thoughts. So I'll just, once I think of something, and it all made sense whenever I found that out and started going to therapy. But ever since then, I've started, trying to find different ways to challenge these intrusive thoughts. And I was kind of kicked in the gut when my therapist at the time, Suzanne, oh my gosh, she's such a real one. If you hear this, girl, shout out to you because you changed my life. She kind of just kicked me in the gut and told me, you're not going to get rid of it, but you can kind of shift things if you're able to identify which ones you want to take on, which I know I touched on a little bit earlier, but it's like, it's so normal to have intrusive thoughts. And like we were talking about, I think all of the small things we've all mentioned in nitpick parts, like, for example, turning that challenging spiral into a positive, affirmation towards the end, or taking action through journaling, something of that, or even just telling yourself, like, am I this thought, or is this thought my own? those are ways to challenge these thoughts. It's not that the thought's not going to happen, that's not the case. It's more so you're going to more easily recognize which ones you genuinely want to take on personally. And I think that it's just such a powerful thing to realize that you can truly take action towards impacting this part of yourself, and it's going to be frustrating, to be honest. I mean, again, moving at such a fast pace mentally for me, I just and that's not in oh my gosh, smart way. It's I could be staring at a Fortnite screen and thinking of so many different things, just dumb little things. Not that Fortnite's dumb. Oh my gosh, I don't want to get canceled, you guys. I'm a little anxious. But long story short, I could just be paying attention to anything. My mind could be going a million miles a minute. And when I'm able to identify, okay, I'm not this thought, but I could be this thought. I could take action towards what I want to be. You are not your thoughts. You are your actions. How people say actions speak louder than words. That's the same with how you treat yourself personally. And I think it's a good thing to help apply to this principle. When those thoughts come to pass, don't be too hard on yourself. Say, oh my gosh, okay, this is a thought. Oh, wow, that could be offensive. I'm not talking about a person, let's be real, but talking about the idea itself. This is a thought that I don't want to keep. I don't want to apply to myself, and I don't want to take action that would make me be seen as I feel in this thought. So how do I want to be? And then challenge it by creating the narrative. Write your own narrative and take action through that. So that's all I really had to say when I was thinking about it. Oh, Maleree, you're muted.
Is it still muted?
No, you're good. Yeah.
Okay. I think the number one thing that you really have to remember in the moment when you're experiencing these intrusive thoughts is you just really need to reassure and rationalize with yourself. So those were the two big words that just came to mind when you were speaking. And when we were talking about this, I was like, that is so important. Those two words just hold so much weight when it comes to being patient with ourselves,
Reassure and rationalize. I want to write that down.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I like that Amanda said, you are not your thoughts, you are your actions. That's really that. I really like that. And I agree about just rationalizing with your thoughts. This made me think of the first month of the self-care space program with self-talk, where when you're changing your self-talk, you have to look at the thoughts that you think about yourself and ask yourself those same questions. Do I agree with this thought? Is it empowering me? Did it come from me or did it come from someone else? I think it's the same thing with intrusive thoughts. You just need to question that, and that's how you decide whether it's worth thinking about or if you can kind of try and shut it down, which isn't always possible, but
shut her down.
I think that's the biggest thing. I remember going to starting therapy with my therapist, and her saying to me, because I initially went, she said, so, what can I help you with? And I'm like, okay, well, I have a lot of anxiety. And she was like, okay, is it consistent? And I'm like, I mean, it's definitely pretty consistent, but sometimes that's crippling, if that makes sense. And she's like, yeah, okay. And I'm like, which honestly then just kind of makes me feel depressed. And she's like, all right. And then she's like, similar to what Amanda said, she's like, okay, so I hate to say this, but you need to hear it. It's not ever going to go away. And I'm like, fair. She's like, that probably hurts, but I'm like, it does a little bit. She's like, but it's important, because it is important to remember that it's not going to go away. And either are those intrusive thoughts. Everyone has them. Does Sheldon have them? He doesn't have an inner dialogue. I don't know. People still have them if they can't.
That's a good question. That is a good question.
Okay.
I think people would definitely still have impulses built upon their habits and how they treat themselves habitually, if that makes any sense.
Okay. That's true.
I think it's
they
hard
don't have the back and forth, right?
Right. Okay.
You're
not arguing with yourself in your mind. Okay.
Yeah.
If you don't have an inner dialogue, none of this might apply to you. You might not be able to challenge anything. You might just be hearing crickets up there and loving yourself.
Or maybe vocally, they just say them out loud.
I was just gonna say, instead of doing it.
Oh my gosh! Wait, now that you mentioned it, Sheldon can be kind of hard on himself, when he's playing Xbox or something out loud. He'll be like, because I'm freaking stupid. And I'm so funny. I'll literally look at him in the moment. I'm like, don't talk about my boyfriend like that. I'll literally stop him and be so dumb about it. I'm like, don't talk about my man like that, okay? My smart.
I love that.
And it's not that he is that, but that would just like be what pops out in the moment. And he's definitely talked about like wanting to slow down personally to take the time to think before he like speaks on that impulse. So maybe that's something that could be relatable, but I'll have that drop it in the comments. And if you don't
again, let us know.
I'm so
very
curious.
interested in this.
So curious.
But so yeah, and I think the best thing, like even with anxiety, intrusive thoughts, either way, like Maleree said, it really is like rewriting the narrative. So it's essentially like Ashleigh said, it that's all. Like month 1 was a self-care space, was so incredible because I was like, wow, this is good. This is I needed to hear this. Because there were like ones that I didn't even think about. I didn't realize that they were even intrusive thoughts. I didn't realize that they weren't my thoughts. A big one for me is like just overall like housework and like motherhood and like just, feeling like I'm doing everything that I need to be doing when it's like I'm definitely doing everything I need to be doing. But sometimes it feels like I'm not. And so like challenging the like, oh, did I do enough stuff around the house today? And I have to literally look around and be like, all right, well, my kids are asleep. They're alive. Everyone has stuff to eat tomorrow. Everyone's got clothes. Like, yeah, like, I mean, because it's just the overthinking them is what really does it. Like, I think that they are important. And that's another thing that she mentioned to me. She's like, anxiety really is like, she's like, I know it feels bad and it feels like sad, but really it's important because it's your brain's way of kind of like keeping things in check, because sometimes you do need to be anxious. She's like, but now, our bodies, everything has progressed since way back in the day. So we have less to be anxious about in person, but to still have that like fight or flight response is like, yeah, it's just, not fun. Absolutely. But another body image, that's for me, is because I do really well, but every great once in a while it's like something triggers it. And I think that's another important thing is if you can in the moment, or if you can kind of step back and realize maybe because some of them have no rhyme and reason. Like some of them just aren't real. I don't know where they came from, but some of them you can be like, they can be useful. They can be helpful. So I try to like think about it like, okay, is this something I need to work on? Or is this something that's just like, irrelevant and ridiculous? Because if it is something that I need to work on, then I'll just kind of correct it in my head. Like, for me, I started looking at pictures of me when I think I was pregnant with Maleree. So hadn't had any kids yet. I was only like 13 weeks pregnant maybe. And I'm just like, wow. First of all, stunned because body dysmorphia is unreal. I looked at that picture and I was like, what is going on? I thought that I was big. I thought that I was huge. Like, I don't even understand. It's so ridiculous to me how you can look at pictures. Like, that's all I think about when like pictures of younger me. I'm like, I remember being stressed and I was hot. Like, what is going on? But for me, I just have to kind of no, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, wow, I was really stressed about that dress and everything was fine. Like, it's just so funny because in my head, it was such like, it was the biggest deal. Like, that's all that mattered. And now I just have come to a point where mostly that stuff doesn't matter. But when was it? I think it was like a couple weeks ago, maybe last week. But I was going out to dinner and this is it. I wear like red shirts, joggers, gym clothes. Like that's just how I am. I don't really like to dress up. Like, I like some things that are cute, like skirts and stuff like that. I like to be like, comfy. But I had to dress up to go out to dinner and I was just like immediately stressed because I'm going through my dress clothes and I'm just like, okay. And I really had to tell myself, like, it's not that like I'm fine. Like I look just like I did the other day when I thought that I looked okay. So I have to like remember that, like, okay, it's not really like, I know that's what you're thinking right now, but like that's not real. And then just kind of have to tell myself that really, I think it was like the choice of clothes. I was like, Felicia, you don't ever dress up. So maybe you just need dress clothes that you feel good in, because that's what it's about. It's not about like losing any weight or whatever. But I'm not gonna lie, I definitely had like that. I had a breakdown. That was the first one in a while though, so I'm proud.
I am just so shook right now that I didn't consider that body dysmorphia was like a big intrusive thought. Like, I didn't even like correlate those two, and now I'm like, wow, like that makes so much sense. Like, because I'll be getting ready and like I'll be doing the same routine, the same clothes, the same everything. And then I'm like, I literally hate this, but I loved it yesterday. And like, in my mind, I just can't let it go. I'm like, this is dumb. I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. And it's like, girl, chill out. Like, you look the same. Like,
that's so true.
Well,
It's fun though.
I was gonna say, I think my favorite part about it is figuring out different ways to challenge these moments. You'll find that they happen so often that I want to put a warning out there. Don't get overwhelmed. You know, you're gonna find once you get the hang of things to figure out what your individual definition of an intrusive thought is, I think that you only will be the person to figure out what the best way to challenge those are. Don't try to shoot too far for the moon. There's no way if you find yourself, really genuinely asking yourself, what does my self-talk sound like? And it's really negative or maybe personally toxic. Don't be overwhelmed or scared, because that's, it can be scary. It can, but know that that just means that you have opportunity. There are ways to challenge these, and just one little challenge at a time. If you find yourself getting overwhelmed for a day, there's no shame in being like, okay, I need to take a second. I'm just going to let my mindset be for today, because you know that you're going to reset and take action. Don't exhaust yourself so that you hate the idea of taking action the next day. You know what I'm saying? Genuinely want to be there for yourself. I think that's probably one thing that I'm really excited to talk about when it comes to, I think we're going to talk about some small wins later on in our outro. And I'm very proud personally of all of us ladies, because again, talking about our Snapchat group outside of this, you will see it in conversations like a click of a button. Honestly, somebody will say something like, I'm just feeling so exhausted today. And then like a click of a button, but I'm going to make today a good day. And not to go back to the example of Ashleigh, but back to the example of Ashleigh for real. We'll just see so many snaps from her just killing it in her day, and just so optimistic and positive. And it's the effort that will eventually get you there. And even if it's just a little bit at a time, so you don't get too tired, that's all it takes. You're on the right track. So, but does anybody want to go ahead and share their win for the day? I wasn't sure if we had anything else to really talk about. I think we got through all our topics.
Yeah, we did. I guess I can share my win first. I kind of completely forgot to even think of one until 2 seconds ago when you said that. But I think my win, well, okay, I have two to share. I have a small one and a big one. My win, the small one, is that today I went to the gym for the first time in a while because I've been sick and just feeling not like myself. So that was good. I was very excited. And then my big win is I paid off my car this past week.
Wow, yeah! Congratulations! That is a big win.
That
Yes,
is a big
I'm
win.
so excited. I feel so accomplished. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that for you. So my win basically is that this is my last week being a college student, and I am so excited. Like my mind is blown. Like I feel like all I've ever wanted to do was just make sure I got it through college. Like I'm getting my bachelor's, and like this is like the main goal I had. So now I'm like, what the heck do I do? But I'm very excited and very hopeful for what is coming in the next couple of months. So
Yes, me too. You did that shit.
We did it. Yes, the world is your oyster. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and go. Honestly, what even is today? April what? I did get a little bit sick. Oh my goodness, I got a little sick towards the end of the week. I'm still kind of recouping from that, but honestly, my win is just yesterday. I guess I'll take a little note from Ashleigh's book. I don't have too many big wins, but I'll do two. My win from yesterday is I felt good enough and I had no fever, and so I went on a walk. And here in Nashville, it was a good 80 degrees, and it was so nice. I was so excited. I got a little bit of a tan line because of my sports bra lines, but I just had such a good time, and it was so nice to feel the sun. And I probably walked longer than I should have, but it was great. Dr. Google said that you can go on a walk if you don't have a fever. So, and then another little win of mine is honestly, oh my gosh, it just left my mind. Felicia, go ahead for your wins, girl. I can already tell it's gone.
It's gone and ain't coming back. No, I'm just kidding. For me, I would say we'll say I'll do a small one, and then I'll do what feels like a big one to me. Small one would just be, honestly, I feel like the week went by good. Marley had a play. She's very shy. But she came out of her shell and she did so good at it. And it was just really fun to watch. And like me stepping back and just not letting things give me anxiety when honestly everything is fine. The day of the play, I was like, oh my God, I'm nervous. And I'm like, why am I nervous? I literally don't even have to do anything. But just kind of with kids, it's funny. It's like she's getting older. So I kind of have to like let them deal with things on their own almost, unless they come to you. But and then also speaking of challenging intrusive thoughts, I haven't been to the gym in a hot minute. So I was injured, and then I went to physical therapy, and I am not probably completely good. I definitely need to still strengthen up my knee and my legs before I do anything crazy. So I started to think about like, man, I haven't been to the gym in a while, but like, why? And I'm like, well, I don't, haven't really want to go. I can't do like a heavy leg day. It just kind of makes me sad. And then I'm like, well, but I have to do something, because if I just keep not doing anything, then I'm just going to like go back like further. Not that I've lost any like progress, but you know what I mean? So, then I was just like, okay, well, how do I feel about my gym environment? And I just kind of like started thinking about it, and I was like, I mean, it's okay, but like, it's a lot of like older dudes, and I don't know, like, do I really like love it? And another thing for me is the reason I've stayed there is, I want to squat with barbell. Well, I can't do that right now. So I'm just like, maybe I should just change it up, because it doesn't have to be like permanent. Everything is temporary. That's like one thing that I've been like literally trying to drill into my brain, because sometimes things do feel like they're not. But I can always go to this other gym, and then I can come back. If I don't like it, I can find another one. Like, so I think I'm going to, it's my first, well, not my first gym membership, but like my first real one on my own. And so I'll probably be canceling that to get a different one. I think I'm just going to go to Planet Fitness for a little bit and just kind of get everything back to where I feel good and strong, and then we'll assess it from there. But I'm excited because I miss the gym, and I think I'm gonna also put a, yes, I need to get, I'm thinking I'm also gonna get a new pre-workout eventually, because I feel like that'll really put the extra
100%. I just want to say
so this is embarrassing. I hit pause / stop recording, so that's why there's this odd gap. Hello from the weird hard cut. But I know Mal was just talking about to wrap us out, but I remembered my other little goal, and I wanted to share it very quickly. So my other little thing that my little win, excuse me, that I'm very proud of, is I laid out completely my budget for my next couple of paychecks so that I could afford an espresso machine. And I'm very excited, and it's obviously not going to be a crazy snazzy one, but you guys can look forward to seeing me with a little latte here at like 6 p.m. So
I cannot wait to see the Snapchats. I cannot wait to see the Snapchats. Oh my goodness.
I love that.
So I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us today. Honestly, this has been like a really good combo. And I feel like I said earlier, intrusive thoughts aren't really talked about enough. I think that it's important for us to acknowledge and to, help each other out. So I made this Instagram graphic. We can insert it in the video potentially. But the number one thing, it's a little graphic. And the number one thing, the first thing I mentioned when you're challenging intrusive thoughts is just to remind yourself to breathe. And I just think it's a great ending note. Just, take it easy. Everyone's just trying their hardest every single day, and you are not your thoughts. So.
Absolutely.
Period.
I love that.
The tea. Period with the tea. Honestly, I don't have anything else to say. And I think we're pretty much done here. So I know Mal already said it, but thank you from me. And until next time, I suppose.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.